Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there's a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. Hi, everybody, and we are back, Rebecca and I, for another 5x3 Radio podcast. Last time we were talking with you, we spent some time talking about online coaching. So,
oh yeah, that's right. I was like, oh God, what did we talk about? I can't even remember what I had for breakfast, Emily.
I know. Online coaching. I remember everything. I just finished off a bowl of yogurt.
You eat the same thing all the time. I go through phases.
I mixed it up today.
I'm back on my yogurt with protein powder for breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I got to put stuff in it though.
Yeah. I opted to do yogurt today after my training session instead of a protein shake because I was like I wanted something to eat and not just drink away my food. So we thought a good topic. This came up because Rebecca and I always think about like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to talk about today? We run through a list of topics, and typically it's always the first one. I feel like it's always the first topic that comes to mind is the one that we want to discuss. And it's usually apropos of what is going on somewhere else.
Usually something one or the other of us is dealing with at the
moment. Exactly. And we wanted to discuss time constraints today in regards to, your program. And what does that mean? Well, I asked Rebecca, hey, what topics are we going to talk about? And you actually are the one who kind of sent me a text about, hey, let's talk about, people dealing with trying to fit the program, into their schedule, into their weekly, their weekly life, and trying to sometimes fit a program, a square program into a round hole, if that makes sense. So what do we mean by that? I could start to talk about it. Do you want to, give us your thoughts about when we talk about time constraints?
I guess the way it usually shows up is a person starts out with the program and it's 3 lifts 3 times a day would be typically, right, with the linear progression.
3 times a week, not 3 times a day.
Did I say that?
3 times a day. 3 times a day, everybody. You're going to squat, press, and deadlift in the morning. And then at lunchtime, you're going to squat, bench, and deadlift.
So, 3 times a week, the 3 lifts. And, when you're first getting started and the weights aren't very heavy and it's easy to move the weights, you don't need a lot of recovery time. You're jazzed up about starting this new program. You're really enthusiastic.
Right.
Things are, motivating and going well or fairly easily. And people are finished their 3 lifts in say 45 minutes at most.
Yep.
And then stuff starts to get heavier and you need more rest time. And maybe your 3 sets of 5 turns into 5 sets of 3 or some other kind of variation. Mm-hmm. So you can and it starts to take longer. And then also too, when a person switches to early intermediate programming and they've got the heavy light volume and their volume day is 5 sets of 5. That takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And, at a certain sort of somewhere around there, end of the linear progression, beginning of early intermediate programming, people often will start to have the feeling like, I just don't have time for this anymore. My 45-minute lift session has turned into an hour and a half, has turned into 2 hours. And then, what do you do at that point? Right. And I think a lot of times what you hear from people is they've really bought into the idea of this is the best way to get as strong as possible, as quickly as possible.
Right.
And there's often a real sense of almost even failure, like giving up or failing. I'm not doing this. There's something wrong with me because, just whatever. And they try and force it. They try and force the program. And they're, shove different pieces of their life out of the way so they can continue doing the program. Mm-hmm. I've had more than a handful of people whose spouse ultimately was like, no.
Really?
You need to put some time constraints around this thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, let's go back. So, the person begins a strength program, and with the model that we use, right? It's 3 big lifts we start people on. And you're right, in the beginning, it's maybe 45 minutes. It's pretty quick because the weights are fairly light. You can get away with resting very little. And then as you continue to train, you stay consistent with the program, as you said, the sessions might get a little longer. So maybe they go from 45 minutes to an hour, from an hour to 75 minutes. And most of the time, 90 minutes is what people are looking at, right? A 90-minute session. But sometimes even within that 90-minute session, it starts to get hard to kind of get your squat, your press, your deadlift, all in the same session, or maybe you're doing what we've been doing. And actually, by the time that you get to that, the program's most likely has changed, right? The reps have changed, the sets have changed, the intensity and volume is being mixed up. But even with that, it can be hard to get 3 lifts in. And when you're on your own, you might be thinking, I'm worthless. Like, I'm not doing it. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get all these lifts in? I'm resting enough time, but the rest time is going a lot longer because I need to get those sets. I need to get those sets of 5. And you start kind of getting frustrated with yourself because you're not doing what the program is telling you to do. Well, maybe the program's not the right program for you. I mean, I think that's kind of where we're talking about.
Yeah, well, stuff changes, right?
Later. Yeah, and we can get to that later. But stop and step back and actually look at what's happening. Like, this is a strength program. This is not your life. You have a life, right? You have a job.
A piece of your life. It shouldn't start to overwhelm your life.
Exactly. And so having a coach who can, sit down and talk to you, or at least over, maybe over Zoom or something, if there's an online coach or in-person coach, they can sit down and say, okay, what's going on with the program? We've made some adjustments here. Maybe we need to make some more adjustments. Maybe you can't do all 3 lifts. What's wrong with me? That's okay. Maybe we just do 2 lifts today. 2 lifts? Well, that's not okay, let's just stop it right there. The program isn't this like, I brought down from God, and I've given it to you, and you will follow the 3 commandment, program, the 3 lift commandment program. It's designed to help you get stronger, right? To help you move better. It's not supposed to break you and consume you, entirely. And as you said, have spouses going, okay, you know what? You've got to get out of that garage. It's 5 o'clock and you've been in there since 12. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's got to give. So what is that? What is that got to give, moment? How can you,
when I kind of got to that point myself personally, when I was on my linear progression towards the end and stuff was like taking longer, or actually, frankly, even when I'd do the volume 5 sets of 5, there were multiple lifts on one day with 5 sets of 5. Like, it was like I was hiding my lifting, like an addict would hide their habit. I'd tell Todd, I'm like, okay, I'm going to the gym. I've got clients, but I wouldn't tell him how many.
Oh my God.
They'd be there for hours. Oh, well, I have clients.
See, when you get to that point, everybody, when you get to the point where you're hiding your lifting from your husband or your wife, or you've got a problem. You've got a problem. So how do we,
it's hard to recognize it as a problem sometimes. I have been there.
And it's good to have somebody who will acknowledge that and say to you, you know what? Okay, why are your sessions taking 3 hours? They shouldn't be taking 3 hours. Let's really think about what you're trying to get out of your strength training. What are you trying to, what is the benefit of this? Why are you doing this? What's important to you? And how can we fit these lifts, this program into your life, as opposed to trying to, make the program, your life? I think, as Diego says in his, his programming, our programming lecture at camps, compliance is number one. Compliance is number one with a program. If you find that you cannot stay compliant with this program, because
Emily, I'm talking about I was compliant. Other people didn't appreciate my compliance.
I think, but the compliance has to be kind of like, compliance as in like, an hour and a half of training. I mean, I think we get into this compliance mode of like addiction compliance mode. Like, I'm going to follow this to a T,
Well, I mean,
grinding out reps, keep
People
adding
pleaser.
5 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to the detriment of my training, to the detriment of possibly getting injured, of not enjoying the training anymore, of dreading going to the gym because I've got to add 5 pounds and I got to make all 3 sets of 5. And if I don't make 3 sets of 5, I'm a loser because I got somebody in the back of my mind telling me I'm a loser. Right? I mean, there's this mentality of like, you've got to push and push and push. And yet at the same time, I felt like there are mixed messages coming from people about training.
Well, I mean, I think also though some of those messages that people hear are like and I'm about to say time specific in the context of this, which is a little, confusing, but like, I mean, messages that are specific to certain points in the training program that are relevant at a certain point,
right?
But then people latch on to those catchphrases or those tips and try and maybe think of them as universal truths instead of specific truths or truths specific to a situation, so, things change as you go through life, but as you go through your program, and then you at various points need to reevaluate. Like one of the things with coaching that is essential, I think, is always being able to answer the question why. So if you're at a point where your training program is taking more than 90 minutes, like you're saying, ask why. And think about how that fits in with the rest of your life. If people around you are complaining that you're spending too much time in the gym, or, oh, you're going to the gym again, right? Like, okay, why are they sounding upset about that or resentful about the time? Like, do I need to reevaluate what's going? Has this turned into an addiction?
Right. And I think, but it's the addiction. And as you said, it's also the feeling of that word compliance of I'm not following the program and someone telling me that I'm not following the program because I'm not making the progress I'm supposed to be making at this point, at this age, at this weight, at this gender. I don't know, whatever it is, there's that feeling of why am I not here? I've been adding this weight. I've been resting my 5 minutes or been resting longer to get this, but things don't feel like they're moving in the right direction, but I'm trying to do the program. Well, maybe the program needs to change. Maybe you need to find a better way to train so that you feel like you are making progress and you don't have to spend 10 minutes waiting for the next set and it's interfering with you're wanting to go to take your child to a birthday party or spend time with your in-laws or whatever it is. What's more important to you? Adding 5 pounds to your bar or, not getting divorced? I mean, I don't want to say that, but there's this mentality of, are you enjoying, or are you enjoying what you're doing? Or is this causing more, stress in your life than actual, I don't want to say enjoyment, but like you're getting the benefit that you're getting from this. Like what's really the motivation behind, continuing to bang your head against a wall, with weights that clearly something's not working. So is it you have to change? Is it the program has to change? Most likely the program. Most likely we have to figure out how do we organize your schedule so that you can get the most out of your training. And it doesn't have to be, 3 lifts in one session.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you guys do this also, but like one of the things that I always, if I'm working with a lifter I'm kind of conscious of this with somebody who's going through an LP. And when I get to a certain point, start like really asking, how long is this taking you? And have them track that. How long are they in the gym? And when it hits like 75 minutes to 90 minutes, then I'm like, is that too much time? How does this fit in with the rest of your life?
Right.
Like asking those questions to people sort of preemptively so that they can assess that and recognize that that's a question that's okay to ask, and asking, do you need something to change? Is this because I want them to be able to do the lifts? It's better to be able to do something.
Yep.
than nothing.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
then also if you get somebody who's, on their intermediate program, one of the things, or early intermediate programming, one of the things I always ask is, well, how many times a week can you go to the gym? How much time can you spend at the gym? I'm always asking about time, because the program could look a lot of different ways to fit time constraints.
That's right.
But I think, when you've got one, and it's very helpful to have one on ramp, but when you're looking at one on ramp, it's hard to know like how long you continue on that ramp before you change off. And it's okay to have different variables determining your divergence from that one main on ramp.
And I think I like what you just said. You said use the word okay. And that is something that we talk a lot about, Diego and I. People feel like they don't think it's okay to do just a squat and press today. They don't think it's okay to just deadlift. If they're not doing the program, which when they come in and they have this three lift, session, I always make a point of telling people, okay, just because we did 3 lifts with you doesn't mean every time you come in here, you have to do all 3 lifts. We have lives. I tell them right up front. So they are aware that the program is not set in stone.
Yeah, I think
that is key. That is key for me to keep a client, to keep that client consistent, and keep that client compliant with what we're trying to do, which is they want to get stronger, they want to feel better, they want to do something healthy. They're coming to the gym. They know that strength training is important to them. I want to keep them in that mindset, and if that means telling them creating something where they have an hour to come in, well, within that hour, we probably can only get in 2 lifts. And I have a couple who have, because of that, because we've gotten away from the 3 lifts, and we've gone down to just 2 lifts, upper body and lower body. They have been more compliant, more consistent with that program, and have made so much progress because they get in there. They know they have an hour. They have 45 minutes. I had 3 lifters come in one day at 7:45. I closed at 8:30 p.m. They came in at 7:45. Three people. When they rolled in, usually someone's going to roll in and go, oh God, it's 45 minutes. I was thrilled. They heard me. They've listened to what I say, that you got 45 minutes, get in here and do something. And two of them got in and maybe were able to do 2 lifts, and one got in and got her press in. But they all 3 of them basically set themselves up and run one by one. So I just did a little video of them.
I think I remember seeing that.
And it was great. They had the most productive session because they had 45 minutes.
Fire lit under them. They had to do it.
There wasn't that feeling of, Emily's going to be so disappointed in me. I'm not good enough. No one has that. No one has that idea in their head, because I don't ever allow them to make themselves feel bad when they can't get in to the gym to do all 3 lifts. I say that right from the beginning. Don't worry about that. Just because this is the program that we are putting you on doesn't mean that program can't change based around your needs and your schedule and your life. That's how you're going to stay consistent. And they hear me. And they make progress. They make very good progress as a result. If I were to tell them, you got to get in here 3 days a week, you got to get all 3 lifts in, you know how many of them would stay? It might. Well, I think some. The dedicated ones might, but even still.
I think it's a situation a lot of times where a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get my book cover colors confused, right? But there's a lot of people that would come into the gym knowing zero squadouche about strength training or lifting. And you and I are dealing often with people who are people who haven't been lifting for decades, right? They're kind of looking to get started, looking to beginning lifters, or people who are, that's not the focus in their life. So there's lots of people who come in with zero background and they're like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. If you say I can do 2 lifts in a session, that's fine. They have no preconceived notions, right? So there you've got zero knowledge. Then you've got on the other end of the spectrum, people who have been lifting forever. They started when they were in high school. They've been on all the different programs. Their football coach had them doing one thing. They're reading stuff in, T Nation or whatever, bodybuilding kind of approaches they've come across from their friends or whatever. They know there's thousands of different programs, and to get them to recognize that maybe there's value for them at a certain point in going on an LP, that's a different discussion. Right. But it's the people who have a little bit of knowledge about the benefits of a starting strength program and the LP, and they have read the blue cover book.
Yeah.
My dog.
Rebecca's dog. Thank God for the
they've read like a little bit. They're familiar with the concept of an LP. They have this notion that they have to do it this way, that it's been laid out in the first book. And they maybe don't even realize there's a second book about programming. And that second book on programming, is that the gray covered one?
Yes, it is.
Has lots of different options, or maybe that, barbell prescription, lots of different potential programs laid out in there. But the people with a little bit of knowledge and this notion that it has to be done just this one way. So it's kind of like the beginners in that middle range. No little, not a lot, not nothing.
Yes.
Who get caught up in this mindset. Yes. So, there may be coaches working with people who are, more competitive lifters who never encounter this issue. They know that there's lots of different programs and phases and so on and so forth. And sort of like, what are you talking about?
And, we can all get started on a specific program, right? All my lifters get started on the same program when they start with us. We have a 4-day program that we've taken. We took the linear progression and we've put it out over 4 days, and we've kind of mixed it up a bit to give more upper body volume. We've added a little bit more volume in respect. But after a couple weeks, that program is going to change for each individual person. And we might have to take out a lift. We might have to insert some things in there. So, I had a client who, after he got his sessions were getting longer and longer, he said to me, I've got 4 days. Can I go on a 4-day split? Absolutely. And that 4-day split has been perfect for him because he's got the 4 days to come in. Yeah. He's in and out in an hour and 15 minutes. Boom, he's done. I had Kelly, who has a new little girl now, who's going to be a year old, right? In May. I can't believe it's already been a year, right? She said to me, I need a new program. I said to her, first thing, how long do you want it?
Yeah.
How long do you want that program to be? Because I know she gets home from after work, her daughter's in daycare. She wants to spend some time with her. She wants to get it in and out. So we put together a program that's not too different from what she was doing before, but it definitely was something that she knows she could handle and have that hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes, whatever we decided it was. And I remember saying to her, is it working out? Yes. And Kelly's good too, because she'll take out something, she'll adjust something if she needs to make sure it fits. But she's really good about, she gets in, she gets her work done, and she gets out. But that is a big factor. You will stay compliant with that program if you know that program is really geared towards your time limit, your schedule, and you will stay much more consistent with it, and as I just said, compliant as well. But a lot of times, this comes back to coaching, right? People need a coach. They need direction. We all need direction. I need direction. I have a coach. He's my husband, and he doesn't often like to coach me, and I have to force him to tell me what to do. And he kind of goes, well, I don't know if it's going to work or not. We get great coaching, right? But we all need somebody.
Yeah, but that's like a difficult spouse coaching relationship.
I know.
Like the fact that you guys even do that, attempt to do that even.
I don't trust anybody else. I trust him. He's been for 12 years now. This is what he's done with me. But that's when you turn to somebody and say, help. And it doesn't mean that you have failed at that program. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you need a new program. Something needs to change. You're not able to, and there's nothing wrong with you. And I think I think people feel bad for not being able to stick with that exact program that they're supposed to do. Well, it may not be the right program for you, meaning we need to maybe organize it in a different way, right? A big lift and some accessory work, or 2 lifts on one day and one lift on another day, whatever or AM training session and a PM training session, if you can handle that. I love those.
Yeah.
Get something in the morning, a couple hours later, get something again. Oh, you're so fresh. You feel, rejuvenated. You even forgot that you did your session earlier.
Yeah.
So if you have,
maybe.
Right. And that's,
Well, and I've had a couple people recently come to me for online coaching whose introduction to starting strength has been through barbell prescription.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're already more open to the idea that there's variability and reasons for changing an LP or adjusting that.
Right.
Primarily based on things like range of motion or, people who aren't able to do certain lifts. And that's something that's in their consciousness already.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess, maybe the older you get, the more you're able to be at peace or honest about what your physical limitations are. There's a weird time frame in the middle of a person's life where they don't want to admit like, that doesn't really work for me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got, you have my wonderful client, Manny, who he's retired. He's got nothing else to do except come to the gym. And he loves it so much. He'll be there for 4 hours. Now he's not training for 4 hours. He's hanging out.
Yeah.
He's wrapping his wrists with his wrist wraps. He's taking his time. He just kind of just hangs there and chills and picks up some weight and works hard, but he's got nothing else to do. That's not me. That's not you, right? We have, but I can't wait till I'm at that age where I got nothing else to do but go to the gym, and I'll probably be hanging out at the gym for hours again too, chatting with people, hanging out with people.
But, just like when you were in your 20s and single.
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, it's, that's just not, for many of us, it's not
feasible.
It's not feasible. It's not feasible. We don't have 4 hours. I mean, when I was spending 3 hours at the gym, at the Y, when I lived in New York, that was a bad 3 hours. That was not 3 hours well spent with Emily. It was an hour in the cardio room, and then it was an hour futzing around with the weight machines, doing every single weight machine. And then it was an hour stretching or doing, for what? I got no results except me being more upset about myself because I'm spending all this time in the gym and there's nothing to show for it. Why not spend an hour and 15 minutes in the gym, hit your lifts hard, right? Get your press in, get your squat in, I feel accomplished. I feel like, I did it. I got in. I'm consistent. My program is working for me. I'm seeing the weight move. I'm seeing the reps move. My body's feeling good. You try to push yourself to the point where you're trying to keep that program going and stay as compliant with that program as possible. And, the program's beating you up, and it's not just adding more weight, not just resting 10 minutes, not just eating more, not just sleeping more. Like you're doing, something needs to change. The program needs to change.
And I think, just like with, there's something nice about stuff that's measurable like that. Like, if the weight is stuck, the absolute weight on the bar is stuck at a certain point for a while, and it's not moving, you're not able to make progress, that's an honest reflection to you that maybe something needs to change. And the same thing with time, right? So if you have a program and maybe you've made adjustments and you've got 2 lifts and it should only be taking you an hour or a little bit less than an hour, but it's taking you an hour and a half, or it's taking you an hour. Well, maybe there's something else, that's an honest, measurable reflection, right? Like, why is it taking a long time, right? Like, so, and whatever, I don't mean to name names, but say one of my kids and we've adjusted her program to fit her, it's her junior year. It's a demanding school schedule.
Right.
And so we've adjusted things, but she has one day where she's doing like heavy lifts and she does not like deadlift. She doesn't want to not do it. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a tension there. Right. But she will procrastinate like nobody's business. Right. And so I've got the lift written out for her. I look at it on paper. It should take 90 minutes. And she's down there for, over 2 hours. I was like, what the hell's going on there? I'll go down and look. And she's just sitting there in a corner, like staring at her phone, watching TikTok.
Well, see, that's when the program needs to change.
Yeah. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I don't want to do deadlift. I'm
your
procrastinating.
client's not being compliant. So
Yeah.
maybe taking deadlifts out of her program for a bit might make her more compliant and
Yeah. So that's sometimes, so, we're talking about sometimes people get into a rub about stuff, right?
Yes.
Stubborn, does not want to take it out, but also wants to argue with it when it's her turn to do it.
Then you have to sit down and be honest with the client and say, look, so you don't want to take this lift out, but you're not doing it. I'm going to take it out.
Why do you not want to do? Why do you not want to do it? Why do you not want to take it out?
Maybe we have to do a variation on it. Maybe let's do some trap bar deadlifts. Let's do some RDLs today.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Any variation.
So then you take it out. You take it out. Does she need to deadlift? No. She'll come back to it. No one needs to do anything. We want to do it. It's good for us. But do we need to? No. And that's the thing when people say to me, but do I need to, shouldn't I get my third lift in? I'm like, why? You can do that tomorrow. Really? Of course. Or not. I don't care. I mean, it's not, you got in and you squatted. More importantly, you got in and you stayed consistent. You're making this part of your lifestyle. And I think that's where we kind of start to, and I'm doing that desk thing again. You told me that last time.
Yeah.
I do this. People can't see what I'm doing. Rebecca can. I got my hand and I kind of
Emily talks with her hands all the time.
the desk. I know. And I'm not
Mine are just hanging out in my sweatshirt pocket.
So, it's okay. And I think that word has to be, we say that a lot, but I say that a lot with my clients. It's okay. I want you to get in here. I want this to be part of your life, not something that's interfering with your life. Not something that's, and if maybe it's one lift. I have a client who works right down the 2 doors down. She works at the realty office. And she comes in and she gets one lift in. And she loves it. And she's making progress and she's thrilled. She's got a busy job. She's got an insane job, which doesn't allow for her for a lot of time for herself. So I said to her, you've got to make time for yourself. You're 2 doors down from me. Get in here, get a lift in, go back to work. You'll feel better. And she always does. And then she's more productive too in her job. So sometimes you have to step back and kind of think to yourself, am I being productive or am I just pissing people off because I'm not, I'm not around because I'm trying to get this program in that seems to be causing a lot of strife in my life and in my body too, let's say, maybe. Right. I monitor my clients, and their programs a lot, what's working, what's not working, where we need to make some changes. And sometimes they don't think they realize it. I made a change to another client's program almost a year ago. Really busy with her job. Her business blew up, which is great. So lots of business, but that was also preventing her from getting in to the gym for the time that she usually was able to get in. Usually she had an hour and a half, right? Maybe even 2 hours, right? Just after work, no big deal. She didn't have that. She was stuck at that, at the shop for hours. So we had to put together a program that was going to allow her to get in a big lift or maybe 1 or 2 and then get some maybe accessory work. We kind of got the ball rolling with that. And then eventually things calmed down and she was able to get back in the gym 3 days a week. But we stuck with that. We kind of stuck with that same idea because she's made incredible progress. So we took away the 3 big lifts every time she comes in, and it became on one day she's able to do 3, and the other day she gets 1 in, and then she has kind of a circuit of sorts with like variations on a press or variations on a squat, something that's easy for her to set up and complete. And she has made more progress on this program than she did on the 3 lift, 3 day a week program.
Yeah. Well, and I think also a lot of times people get caught up in this idea that our culture seems to promote that you can have all things all times, all things at all times. I mean, like you can get strawberries in January,
right.
Everything all the time and not thinking about seasons.
Right. Yeah.
And there's seasons to a person's life and to their available time. And the program that works for them is going to depend on what the season of their life looks like. It might be a time like you're talking about with Kelly, where she's got a job and a little baby and not a whole lot of spare time. So that program is going to look very different than something that she was able to do, 4 years ago. Or, like just exactly what you're saying, the stuff at work takes off. And that's where, having a coach to kind of help you figure out, like, okay, if I have this much time,
right,
how do I make the best use of it? And that's really what the LP and the Starting Strength program initially is all about. Really, for somebody who's getting started out, there's thousands of exercises that you could choose from. How do you choose wisely with the time that you have allotted?
Right.
Recognizing that you can't have everything all the time.
No. And
that's not what marketing will sell you. They don't sell you that idea.
And it's really, I find it very exciting as a coach to kind of see my clients progress like that and change like that, kind of start them out on this, very simple linear progression, very simple strength training program, the big compound lifts, which we choose those because, they hit the entire body. They teach people how to move better. But eventually, as those lifts get heavier and people's lives, get busier, they want to be able to come in and still make progress and still get stronger and still hit those heavy weights. But they have to be mindful of their time constraints. And we as coaches have to be mindful of that too. And help them put together a program where they come in, they know they roll in at 7:15. By 8:30, they're going to be walking out that door and they will have accomplished everything that they came in for. And with this new program too that I put her on, her focus was better. She was resting still in between her, but there was a different focus. There was this kind of like, and I helped her actually learn to better, what's the word I'm looking for? Better manage her time, because there's always a lot of like kind of lollygagging and, she'd rest, but then it was like, she would just be very slow with getting things going. Not anymore. Yeah. Not anymore. She learned how to manage her time and get right to it and load up a bar for the next lift as she was finishing her lift before. I think we talked about that.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice thing that you're able to do if you're in a gym with multiple squat racks. You can't always do that if you're lifting.
No, you can't. But at least you can kind of sit down and say, okay, today I'm going to hit that first before after, But at least with her, it was just more getting her lift set up too, getting everything kind of organized in her head, so that when she came in, she got everything done. She had this amount of time, and she had a program that she could follow, that she could stay compliant with, and that way she could be consistent. And because if you got a program that you can't stay compliant with, you're not going to be consistent, and then you're going to just it's going to fall apart.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that you mentioned was about like still making progress, right? And so what, the initial LP takes the zillions of exercises, narrows it down to 4.
Right.
It doesn't seem like a lot. But if you're going to be making progress, you might get to a point where 4 lifts, you're not going to make progress on 4 lifts, right?
Right.
And so Sully talks about this, you see this idea other places as well, but the idea of specializing, right? Like if you decide to be a power lifter, you're going to specialize in bench over overhead press. But there, might be other reasons why you choose to specialize in certain lifts and let other lifts take a secondary role in your program.
Right.
And if time is a constraint, you might specialize in one upper body lift and one lower body lift. And then you've got those lifts that you can continue to program in order to progress. And the other lifts maybe fall into a supporting role. And maybe if you're starting out and you're thinking 4 lifts is a drastic reduction from what you were expecting, and now you're going to cut that down even more. I mean, it's not like you're taking everything out of your program, but you're just focusing on 1 or 2 lifts as the ones where you want to see progress. And the other lifts are there just to support that progress.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I guess, the way you come across that in Sully, like we were saying before, is because of, maybe range of motion or ability constraints that might force that decision for a person. But time forcing that decision for a person is also a valid reason to narrow down your focus a little bit.
And absolutely. And speaking of time, I know that you have to,
I gotta go.
So I want to end with this. Less is often more. That's a lot. That sometimes we forget that I could spend I could still spend 3 hours in the gym doing a shit ton of stuff, right? After I've lifted, because I love being there. But is that going to benefit me? Is that really going to help me to continue to push myself? No. So oftentimes less is more. And you'll find that if you can possibly pare down your program to maybe even just 2 big lifts and something at the end, you're going to find you're going to make a lot more progress. You're going to recover faster. You're going to feel better about yourself. Your body's going to feel better. So, play around with your program and don't get frustrated that you're not doing the program. Because the program may need to do
more than one program.
More than one program. The program it's not the program. It may be maybe the program that particular program that you're doing just may not be the right fit for you. So we're going to wrap it up there. We could probably continue to talk about this, but maybe at a later date. I do want to remind everybody that in about 2 months or so, our Charm City Strong Woman contest will be here, our 11th annual contest. And I will continue to have links in the notes section of our podcast about the contest. And once we start our fundraising page, how to donate and to the Charm City Strong Woman contest that will benefit the Ullman House and the Ullman Foundation. So keep looking out for that, as well as additional things about the contest. Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with a new topic. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.